So I'm thinking this might be the last one for today. I found Mr. James O'Brien off of LBC radio. Don't usually agree with him, but I don't usually agree with most of them, you know. I listen to all of them, because there's always a little kernel of something you can glean, isn't there? So listen, he's actually got a point, which I might halloumi on.
And the colleague was, to all intents and purposes, completely innocuous, completely ordinary, completely unremarkable.
But what is ordinary?
I think most of us would go, nah, come off it. And then you take it upstairs and you're like, no, look, I mean, you know, coincidences happen. She's a full-time nurse. The odds of her being on duty are quite high, but every single one...
Yeah, but before they went upstairs, as you so succinctly put it, James, they'd worked out the data, didn't they? So the doctor or the paediatric consultant had already done some sort of graft or something, which I've seen. You could all see it, graph. Yeah, which sort of featured her quite heavily in every given moment that any infant met their demise. What occurs to me in this whole thing is, as I paid to repeat myself, that there is a child safeguarding rule, isn't there, a law? Is a neonatal baby unit, an intensive care unit for infants, am I wrong, or is that a child setting? Or it is, it's got children in it, so it's a child setting. Anywhere that there's a child setting, as soon as anything was reported, it's incumbent on the child safeguarding employee or officer, of which it would be a child safeguarding officer, wouldn't it, within such a big organisation of this district general hospital. It's incumbent on them to, in the first instance, contact the police, the local police, who would then pass it on to police child protection unit, who would then investigate. It's mandatory. So I'm kind of confused as to why that didn't happen to start with. I think a few other people have hit on the same point, that what is it that they were trying to cover up? Which I'm not saying that the managers were trying to, because I really think they're in denial. But if you've got nothing to lose, why wouldn't you have just gone through the protocol and thought, right, well, we've had a complaint, we need to pass this on to the safeguarding officer, who are then, it's in their remit. I've done my bit, I've heard the complaint, I've passed it on to the right people, and we're going to let them deal with it. And then they get the complaint and contact the police, who in turn have a talk about it and contact the child protection, who will then look into it and then contact them and bloody-blah, right? Why did that happen? Because it happens in far lesser venues than that, I can assure you. So that is a bit mysterious. Also, the other thing that I've gleaned as well is actually when she was actually taken off the ward at some point after the initial complaints, and they put her in the safeguarding department, patient safeguarding department. I mean, you know, those babies were, you know, they were buggered, weren't they, really? You know, I don't mean like that, but I mean, you've took a bleeding psychopath off the ward and put her in the patient safeguarding. I mean, talk about shredding it and binning it, you know? So even if they had gone through the correct procedure, it would probably just ended up in the bin. I mean, we don't know that, do we? I mean, I'm not even surmising, because it's beyond my thing. I don't care. It's nothing to do with me. But it does make me think, why didn't it go through the right channels, which it would in, as I say, far lesser venues, like scouts, cadets. I've even known after-school chess clubs. They all got their protocol, playgroups, anywhere there's children. As soon as anything comes up, you do have to contact the child safeguarding officer or employee that is in their remit to deal with it. So why didn't that happen? Because the managers per se wouldn't have been in any way in the firing line. They would have just been following protocol. They would have done their job. So the fact they didn't is kind of a mystery. And also, when she was put off the ward and she kicked up and had a little hissy fit, it was her mum and dad that took on the hospital on her behalf and went to a meeting with the managers and her and said they were going to take it further. Her mum and dad, she was a professional woman in her late 20s at this point, and she had her mum and dad there. I mean, you know, you could kind of pick up the duvet and have a little squint underneath of what was really going on here. I mean, you know, it's nothing to do with them. And if they hadn't have interfered, and if people had just behaved, it's almost like the dad was some sort of unforeseen power. I mean, I know he was an accountant or something, or bookkeeper, something like that, but what power did he have? Was it the stone cutting crew? I hesitate to say that because it's probably crap, but I mean, what was it that made them think, do you know what, we're not going to take this, we're not going to do this properly, we're not going to go through the right procedures, we're just going to shut it down, we're going to get some very, very experienced and educated consultants, paediatric experts and doctors in, and make them write apology letters to Lucy because she feels like she's a victim being bullied on this ward or something or other. So it's a whole mystery, isn't it? I think over the coming months we will learn something, but I do know something. If they do have an inquiry, it will just be a big carpet and a big broom, and they'll just brush everything under that said carpet. Won't they, Vutu? Because we've all been here before, haven't we?
I'm the only one who's been on duty forever. Yeah, come off it. There's no way she's killing babies.
No, it's hard, isn't it?
No way.
But it's about perception. I think he's got it here, old James, isn't he? It's about perception because she was blonde and this, that and the other. So are you saying that every criminal is ugly? Because that's just not true. It really isn't true.
And then you get this...
Or is it, I've just hit on another thing, is it just middle class people and political and media classes people's perception that they're sort of sending out into the ether, where most of us here at home know that, you know, you could be ugly as sin and like Mother Teresa, who wasn't what one might call a looker, and you can also look like an angel. I mean, there was people that even thought that Myra Hindley was good looking and used to write her love letters in prison, didn't they? Do you get me, capiche? So it's kind of subjective to the person. I don't think she's good looking. I think she just had a Poundland dye, blonde dye on her hair, didn't she, old Lucy? She weren't nothing special, but she was kind of a plain Jane. But the media and political classes will see her as some sort of aberration rather than actually the norm. Criminals come in all sorts of shapes and sizes and looks and hair dyes.
Astonishing exchange with the duty manager when Stephen Breary says, I challenged her, I said, are you saying that you're making this decision against the wishes of 7 consultant paediatricians?
Shocking.
And she said yes.
Absolutely shocking.
Breary said he asked Reese if she would take, quote, responsibility for anything that might happen tomorrow to any other baby.
Yeah, hasn't she just had to resign now? I wonder whether she'll walk away with her golden handshake and pension and everything. Are we in the right boat? I mean, would you really, if you owned a garage that was doing MOTs on cars, which is an important job, would you employ like a chef to be the manager? Or would you employ somebody that had some sort of background in mechanics? I mean, it's not bleeding rocking science, is it? And you've got 7 doctors, some of them were consultants and everything, and nobody listened to them. It's just heartbreaking. It's almost as though the patients didn't really matter, the victims didn't matter. It was all about the managers and their feelings, butthurt feelings. Oh, hang on, I've done something wrong here. Yeah, sorry, I've double tapped, you know, it does happen.
He is said to have replied, yes.
Right.
And then a baby collapsed on Letby's shift that day. The nurse was called into a meeting and told for the first time of her link to the deaths in the unit. That's a year since the first 3 deaths were recorded. And she was then placed under supervision. But I still don't think anyone quite
She should have been dragged off and put into Bleaton Broadmoor or Rampton under supervision. You know, if that was anybody else, it's the tea lady or somebody, you know, just, oh, well, you know.
Moved it because in July she was moved to a clerical role. So she's still working in the office. She's still going out.
She was in the patient safeguarding department.
For drinks with nurses.
We were buggered, weren't we?
And everyone is apparently happy to drink with her. So, because the verdict dropped on Friday and because the case has been before the court for so long, I'm comfortable going down this path of conversation and contemplation.
Yes.
I don't know what else we do actually.
No.
Except possibly.
He always seems so blimmin' lacklustre and pissed off, old James. I suppose it's because he's seen it all before, and he bless him. Come on, James.
On the nature and existence of evil.
Tell us all your funk tits.
What really interests me is how that happened. That year-long process.
I know, it's crazy.
Of a growing number of doctors.
But they're actually saying that they've sort of corralled that year-long period. Was it from June 15 to... Was it February 15 to July or June 16? But they've actually worked out that if you look back in her sort of earlier portfolio, of jobs that, yeah, there's some suspicious activities, to say the very least.
Voicing growing concern. Going to a place that is almost impossible to imagine, where you are looking at a colleague and thinking, that person is killing babies.
That's sick.
That person is killing...
hard.
What I'm saying is that on a very personal level, I think I would find it easier to believe that she wasn't than that she was. And that is what I suspect is at the heart of this process.
Because you always judge people by your own standards, and that's the biggest mistake that most people make, isn't it? Anyway, I'll leave it there, James. Well said, whatever it is you're trying to say, yes, so succinctly. Bye-bye now.